forge a society that is colorblind and merit-based.
Hi, Mario. Hi, Siria. How are you guys?
Doing well. How are you doing today?
Wonderful, wonderful. So, what do we have today, actually? Let's start.
Yeah, certainly. So our first question is from an anonymous user. They ask, what is the biggest misconception professionals have about qualifying for EB-1A?
One of the biggest misconceptions, I like the innocence and the simplicity of this question, actually. One of the basic misconceptions what people have that they have to fulfill the criteria. And that's it. Fulfilling three criteria will help them to become EB-1A. Remember, the category was established for people who are either Nobel laureate or Oscar awardee or an Olympian. It is of that caliber of the person. If your field does not have, yet you have to prove that you have reached a level of significance in your field at the top, that is in a way that if there were a Nobel Prize, if there were an Oscar, if there were an Olympic in your field, you would be at least a good contender, if not getting it. That's the way it is. So essentially, boil down to this begs another question, that why should we have? I mean, what is the purpose of having EB-1A then actually, and what is the criteria, real criteria for that? 10 criteria are only significant to an extent that you need to prove that you are truly an expert in your field who has risen amongst the top, say 1% or 10% in your field of expertise. Number two is that your expertise is beneficial to the US, and number three is that you will continue in your field of expertise. So the misconception what people have, that they just have to fulfill the criteria, and we have seen this repeatedly, time after time actually. Better is, and we are trying to do, this is important from an education perspective about EB-1A, that people should understand that why and how. I don't want to say it's irrelevant, because finally the presentation goes in form of a criteria, but the depth has to be with reference to your expertise and benefit to the US, and of course your continuity in the field. Okay, so let's move to the next question.
Of course. So the next question is, if you were evaluating my profile today, what accomplishments would you prioritize building over the next 12 to 24 months?
Again, I like this question, but I think this question lacks one basic context actually, that what is your field of expertise? It's not about your field of expertise, what it would take to, remember there are three dimensions of success for your EB-1A. Number one is your expertise itself actually. So since it is talking, and second is about your understanding about your EB-1A, and third is about understanding about how to present yourself. If you understand the three dimensions and three aspects, then only it will make sense. Evaluating your profile, what accomplishments, well, I mean, are you a rocket scientist, or are you a project manager, or are you a data scientist? What exactly is your field of endeavor? Everything would change based on that actually. So it's I don't want to qualify myself to respond to this question, because it's too fundamental and too basic, and this, unfortunately, this cannot be generalized across the disciplines. So we'll have to kind of, so if you know your field of expertise, then it will make sense. If you're a software engineer, I mean, obviously you need to produce something which is very unique in your field of endeavor. Okay. So, I would request this gentleman to let us know more details about himself with his field of endeavor. That will help us to qualify him for, and how it would take in the next 12 to 24 months for this person. Okay. Yeah. Next.
Yeah, absolutely. So our next question, they ask, how do you identify someone's true niche, and why is it so important to a successful EB-1A case?
I think again I like this question, that why niche is very important, because it is important because that is the main purpose for which you are being selected actually for EB-1A, or that way you get approved, your petition gets approved. Now let us say, for example, if somebody is in 70s and speaks about a data transfer, and speaks about the fact that, remember, there used to be a big hubs size of a room in 60s. If you have seen some old photograph, that 1 MB used to be a size of a room actually, and data transfer used to take hours together. If somebody is aiming to become a data transfer expert during that time, I mean, can you give a vision for your field of expertise that it can become something like all computers in the world can be connected together, and that becomes an internet today actually. So USCIS is looking for that vision in you for that actually, and so it is very much important actually here. Now comes the next question: is that how do we identify that? Basically, we have a patented process for that actually, called a done process, and we have a patent for that. The details are given available on the net about our patent. Now, if somebody wants to, kind of identify the expertise, what we like to do is that reverse engineer all your accomplishments and find a common thread that binds all the expertise or the skills, knowledge that is tied together for this particular purpose. What is a common thread that binds you, and that becomes your expertise. Let's say, for example, I would like to give an illustration. My own case, when I was doing my EB-1A, I was CEO for Financial Planning Standard. Before that, I was a HR head. Then I was the director of Symbiosis Institute of Management Studies. And before that, I was selling mutual funds in one of the large global conglomerates company, actually. So what were the skills that were required? And so what is my expertise? Many people told me, oh, it's management consulting. It is financial management. It's investment management. But finally, I realized that no, it is not the case. If I were to find out a contour of a common thread that binds all my experience and expertise together, it was as a financial educator. So it was a financial educator who was the director of Symbiosis. It was a financial educator who was a HR head. It was a financial educator who was selling mutual funds, and it was a financial educator who was essentially it is basically a true professional soul. What is your true professional soul actually? So it is the soul of your entire professional career, what you have been doing and what you have been learning. And that is how it is very important. Okay. So let's move to the next question.
Sure. So the next question is, what separates a strong EB-1A profile from a one that is simply eligible? For many professionals without publications or patents, what are the most effective ways to build a competitive profile?
Well, let us put it this way, that simply eligible means I'm assuming that you have got through it. So definitely you are kind of proved all the aspects. Somebody who has to be outstanding, it is not about your EB-1A profile. It is about you being an extraordinary in your field of expertise. Remember one thing, that there is a difference between being an exceptional and being extraordinary. I would like to put it this way. Somebody is exceptional because they have applied their knowledge. Okay? And extraordinary is a person who has kind of not only applied the knowledge, he has contributed to that field of expertise and the field of knowledge. So there is a marked difference between the two. So if you have been able to contribute to the knowledge actually, and so that separates extraordinary from exceptional and ordinary. Ordinary people just do things. Exceptional people, they would contribute using their knowledge, and extraordinary people would contribute in the field of knowledge itself actually. It's not about, okay, then this can be manifested by virtue of your publications or patents or effective. I mean, these are only tools to do that actually. Okay. But yes, you have to contribute to the field of endeavor. That's how it is very important. Okay. So let's move to the next.
Perfect. So I think this next one, we've actually had some similar profiles actually successfully get EB-1A within the program, but how can someone demonstrate original contributions when most of their work is proprietary or confidential?
You see, let's say, for example, you are working in Coke and you are the one who has invented the Coke formula. You cannot give the Coke, but at least the documentation that you are the person whose patented product is giving this is very important actually. A copy of the patent is good enough actually. The lot of work might be proprietary, but what have you done can be narrated. Suppose if you have created I'm just making this up actually, created an app that can kind of, people who are mute and dumb, they are not able to understand, but your app kind of understands the body recognitions and the hand recognitions and translates that into voice. But you don't want to share even the fact that you did this and what is the impact of that. You don't get EB-1A because you have some knowledge of doing something, because there is an impact. So even if you are able to articulate what has been the impact by virtue of your work, by naming something on that front, that should be good enough. So you don't have to and don't push yourself through original contribution if there isn't any actually. That's also an equally important aspect that you should keep that in mind. Okay, so let's move to the next.
Absolutely. The next question is, what criteria do you believe professionals consistently underestimate, even though they can significantly strengthen an EB-1A petition?
I think if you talk about underestimate, I think it's about the original contribution. Many people feel that they can because if they have worked for an organization, our original contribution to the company is totally different from original contribution to the field of endeavor. Actually, there is a marked difference between the two. First of all, there has to be significance, and then there has to be contribution to the field, not to the company. That is what you don't have to necessarily go for original contribution if there isn't. So many people underestimate that actually. So let's move to the next question.
Certainly. So they ask, if you had to build an EB-1A profile from scratch today, what would your roadmap look like over the next 18 months?
I like this question. This is similar to what accomplishment would you prioritize? That was the second question. And this is come to what is a roadmap. I think, first of all, it is never a scratch actually, because we don't take people who are just fresh out of school. So we want people, it is not possible that it is a scratch. You may believe that it is a scratch because you may not have any criteria. That's what you may believe. But let's say, for example, let's take a hypothetical scenario wherein somebody is earning 150K with a 10 years experience. May not today, it is visibly seen that he or she is not able to fit himself or herself into the EB-1A right now, then what that person should be doing as a roadmap. That's the question actually. So first, that you need to understand that one can easily make out an average salary on a today's present value for that person for the last 10 years would be around, at the back of the envelope will tell me that it is around 125,000 actually for the last 10 years if the person has an experience and earning around 150K. Now it means that for 10 years, the person has earned 1.25 million. It means that please understand that somebody paying you an X amount would definitely expect a return of 20X. So if you see 1.25 into 20, it means that one has created an impact of 25 million. Now that 25 million has to be looked from the lens of the criteria. You will see that you did some project couple of years back that becomes a critical role. You did some created an asset for the company. It could be intangible asset also, like creating an app or creating something that could manifest itself as an original contribution. You did contribute for a white paper that could become, or you did some, research or some kind of a participation in exhibition that could help you to fulfill one of the criteria in any manner actually. You represented your institution. So there are a lot of things that person has done in their life which could potentially become EB-1A compliant. Let's put it that way. So the roadmap would essentially be again based on the three dimensions that, okay, have you sharpened your saw actually? Have you sharpened your expertise? That's number one. Number two would be that do you understand about EB-1A per se, and learning what are the different frameworks to be utilized to present it actually. So there is something called as Leave and Shevard's model. We have, Mudholkar mastery matrix. We have a lot of patents that can be utilized if possible. So there are a lot of things that one can do to kind of articulate that. Okay. So I think it is never from the scratch, at least in the program perspective. And even if it is not, then 18 months would be too short a time. Okay. So let's move to the next and the last question actually for the day today.
Of course. So the last question is, what are the most common mistakes you see people make when trying to build their profiles without guidance?
Actually, this is one of the questions that, Thomas Michel, one of the, kind of former USCIS officer, we had asked him, and we have a session with him recorded actually. You may like to watch this. He answered this in a very deliberate way, and you may like to look at his answer. But I think in our perspective, most common mistake that people make while trying to without a guidance is just trying to do everything actually. When it comes to defining their expertise, they define themselves by virtue of their jobs, titles. They define themselves by virtue of their qualifications. I'm a software engineer, I'm a project manager, I'm a project leader. That's how it happens. Like they feel this will help for their critical role also, so they do that actually. The second is that when it comes to criteria, they just randomly kind of try to fit into the criteria. Third, when it comes to nurture, which is like creating difference into the gap, they just do random events and undertake random initiatives. That's another aspect they do actually. Okay, and the last but not the least is that how to deal with attorney, what are the frameworks, how to present yourself, how to execute, they commit a mistake in terms of presenting themselves actually. By your CV, taking your CV and trying to impress an attorney or impress somebody is not going to help you for your EB-1A. It has to be articulated from the lens of the criteria actually. So these are the mistakes what people do mostly if they are kind of going on a self designed path, I would say that. So that's all I have at this moment, guys. And if there are any more questions, please write to us. If you want to participate in this session, we are more than happy to let you come here. And if you want to join the Next League program and begin your EB-1A journey, please reach out to Mario and Siria or I, and we'll be more than happy to help you. And wish you all the best and have a happy weekend. Bye-bye. Thank you for joining us today. If you have any further questions or need personalized guidance, please reach out to us. We are here to help you every step of the way in your journey towards achieving your American dream. Let's connect and make it happen together.